Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to discuss an interesting topic that deals with web application. So as you know, typically any web application we build would need some kind of data storage, which means that you're going to have to put that data in a database, whether it's a SQL database, whether it is any other database that you're dealing with. Now, typically in a three-tier application, you have three different tiers. You got your client, you have your middle tier, which deals with the application server, and your third tier that deals with the data storage. Okay, so that's all nice and good. If you have been following me, you would notice that in my previous list of playlists, I have been talking about how to build Spring Boot based web application and Spring Boot based REST API. But all those were done in a local platform, meaning whether it's Windows, Linux, or your Mac, you're building everything locally. Your database is locally. So the topic of our discussion today would be how do we take that three-tier application and deploy it in the cloud, which is, of course, a very popular topic nowadays, and it's actually a very good skill to have. Now, speaking about cloud, there are several different clouds out there on the market today. For instance, there is AWS, Amazon Web Services, there is Google Cloud, there is Oracle Cloud, there is Azure, there's Heroku, and of course there are others. Tons of them. Today we're going to discuss especially Heroku Cloud. Again, a disclaimer, I do not work for Heroku. I'm just here to show you my humble experiences that I had with different clouds and what I think is probably the best cloud out there for learning purpose. And this may be a very good skill for the fresh college graduates. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why it's good for the fresh college graduates. Well, first of all of those clouds that I mentioned, Amazon Web Services, or whether you use the Oracle clouds, most of them and almost all of them actually requires you to put your credit card. Of course, they have a free tier, so you get it for free for 1 year or 3 months or whatever the duration is, but you have to put your credit cards and they will put a hold on to it. And as soon as you are not careful and you basically just over usage your free limit, your card will get charged automatically. Those cloud services, Heroku is different. Heroku is actually called Student Cloud Platform. So that's the reason I would suggest using Heroku. Now, we're going to use Heroku in our tutorial today for our middle tier, which is the web service. We are also going to use another cloud platform called freesqldatabase that basically just deals with SQL database, which is free. Another neat thing about the freesqldatabase cloud platform is also that it does not require you to have any credit cards whatsoever. So let's get started. Basically what we'll be doing after we are done deploying our web application to all those cloud platforms that I just mentioned, it's going to look like something like this. So if your client have a web browser, they're, let's say, accessing the application, so the client will be connecting to the Heroku platform where you will have your Spring Boot secure application, which happens to be deployed as a WAR file. The WAR stands for Web Archive. If you're familiar with the Java development web stack, you know what that is. It's just a packaged zip file that has the right specification for web application. Then web application, if it interacts with the database, which it will in our case, it will connect to this free MySQL database, which we're going to actually create with some SQL script. So that's basically how it's going to look like. Of course, you could ask why we're using MySQL, another platform, when you have, Heroku also has a database that you could use, which it happens to be Postgres, and that is also, they have a free tier, I believe. But the reason I wanted to go through the different route is basically I wanted to show you a literally true independent separate tier cloud to cloud connection. So here we have Heroku as a cloud that holds the application server, and then you have freesqldatabase as a cloud that holds the database, and they're independent of each other. One could be in China, one could be in Japan. And then you're sitting here in the United States trying to log into the system. So this is, truly pure cloud-to-cloud communication. And the nice thing is it's going to be free if you follow the tutorial. So, stay with me and let's find out how you can do that. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to need is a JDK, a Java Development Kit. So you can go to this site, and you don't have to remember the exact link. I would put all of these links in the description below, and it will also be in my GitHub page that I will also put a link below, and that will have all the list of reference. So you're going to need a JDK, so please go ahead and download and install the JDK that applies to you, whether it's on Linux or Mac or Windows. Okay. In my case, I actually downloaded the zip right here and I installed it. Just to quickly show you, I just installed the JDK in this directory right here. Just unzip it. So once you do that, then you just have to remember exactly where you installed it. Step number 2, you have to go install Apache Maven. So you basically go to this maven.apache.org site, and based on your platform, you just download that applies to you, and then install it, configure, and run it. This has a very nice detailed instruction. In short, Maven is basically a very popular build tool for Java. Okay, then the step number 3 is, of course, you're going to need the SQL database. So you would go to the freesqldatabase.com site, this site right here, and you're going to go ahead and register. Registration is completely free, and when you register or sign up, as you can see, this is the free tier and this is the paid tier. You're just going to click in here and follow the process. It's very self-explanatory and very easy to do. As you could read here, in the free tier, the number of databases that are allowed is 1. You're going to get up to 5 meg, which is absolutely fine for the stuff that we're going to do. It's pretty going to be small, and actually 5 megs are also a very large amount of space, unless you're deciding to put millions of data. But anyway, you register it. Once you register it, what happens is, well, if you're done with the registration, you would get an email like this. This email basically is going to say your database has been set up, and these are information: your host, database name, user, and password, and your port number. So this is very important. Make sure that you keep this email handy, save it, print it, or whatever you have to do. So this is basically your information page that you're going to need. Now, one thing to know, in a free tier, one of the things that you have to do if you want to keep your database alive, you will get an email every, I believe, sometimes in a Sunday, and that will ask you, do you still want your database to be kept up? And you just have to basically say, yes, I want to keep my database up, and answer a CAPTCHA, and voila, it will automatically keep it up. Otherwise, if you don't do it, it's just going to delete your database. It's not going to delete your free host, it's just going to delete the database. So that email may look something like this. So you're going to get something like, hey, if you want to keep your database free and we don't want to delete your thing, make sure you go click on this link. So that's all. Once you have your database information and you saved it, the next thing to do would be to register for Heroku. So you're going to go to basically the Heroku site, heroku.com. Again, you don't have to remember these links. I'll put them in the description below. So if you look at the Heroku different tiers, you're going to sign up for this one. They're all different types of tiers. You're interested in this one, free and hobby. This does not require any credit card whatsoever. And if you look at the detail in a fine line, it basically gives you, I think, certain number of hours per month for free. So if you don't use that many dyno hours, then you don't need to worry about it at all. If you exceed that hours, then it's probably not going to work. The other thing that you also, and again, you can read about all of that in here, as you can see, 550 and 1,000 dyno hours per month. That basically means that when your servers are up and running, those servers are dyno. They call it dyno. In AWS world, they call it compute instance. You see the terms EC2, Elastic Beanstalk, those things. That's basically a similar concept, so they call it dyno. So you get those for free, and in my experience, if you're a student and if you're just doing this for learning purpose, you would never pass those things unless you decide to run a real business application. Then yes, you need to worry about pay for it. But for what we're going to do, this is absolutely fine. So make sure go ahead, register for the free tier. Doesn't require any credit card. Once you're done, it's time to check out a sample application. So if you're familiar with my channel already, I have been talking about building an employee vaccination management system, which is described fully in this playlist. If you're interested, please go ahead and look at the step-by-step guide tutorial how to build that application, because we're going to use that application as a sample so that we have something to deploy. But please do note, it is not mandatory that you go back to this playlist and look at all the videos to understand the application. For this tutorial that I'm going to discuss right now, I actually already have a version of that application in the GitHub separately just for us to deploy. Okay, so you really don't need any of that information that in here. It's just will help you to understand how the application was built and what that application is doing. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about that probably at the end. So the next step is you want to get that application, and that would be the GitHub link. As you could see that I'm calling it EVMSH. H stands for Heroku. So this is kind of like a subset of that application, but it's got a little bit more information to how to deploy in Heroku, some batch programs. Okay, so I'm gonna open a command shell since I'm on Windows, and this is where I put all of my projects. And of course, I'm assuming you already have Git. If you don't have Git, of course, you cannot check out any application that is in Git. So the way you check out application is just git clone, and that is the link, and I'm going to provide that link in the description below, which will be available for you. Let's go ahead and do that. And it's checking it out, and it's done. And it's going to show up right here, as you can see. There it is. It's checked out. So the application is this, and we're going to try to deploy that application in all of those platforms that I said that is in the cloud. Heroku and freesqldatabase. All right, so of course this is already done. Build it for you. We just need to update certain scripts in order to be able to deploy it to your target. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. The very first thing you want to do is we want to create the database to the freesqldatabase cloud. Okay, how do I do that? Well, as you can see, there will be this directory called SQL. Go ahead, go to that directory and open it up using your favorite text editor. I'm going to open it up using TextPad and go ahead, copy that entire script. And then if you recall this email, in this email, they will give you a link to say, follow this link to be able to log into your database. So that's what you're going to do. So when I click on the link, it's going to look something like this. So you'll get this. So here you have to put your server name, your username, and password, and just verify this CAPTCHA and click on go. Right? And how do we get this information? That's where, if you remember, I mentioned that keep that email handy. In a server, you're going to put the host. In the username, you're going to put the username, whatever they gave you, password, you put the password. And then check this box, of course. Once you're done with that, once you're successfully logged in, you should land on a page something like this, that you are inside that database. Okay, this is my database that I registered. So the first thing you want to do is click on the schema, because click on your schema and then click on the SQL prompt. And then if you recall, we saved the script. So here we're going to paste that script. Okay, paste that entire script. Just click on go. If you click go, the script should automatically run and you would get a prompt. So go ahead, click on this go and just say okay. The script should run and you would get a successful message, something like this. You'll get a whole bunch of them and it's going to show up there. So this means that you successfully imported your database into the freesql database. That's the first step. Now that you have your database on the cloud, the next step would be to configure your Heroku and basically update the script to run Heroku. So the first thing I want to do is go to this Heroku CLI download and install page. The CLI, basically it's a call level interface. This is what you would use on your local machine to communicate with Heroku on the cloud. So go ahead, go to the site, link in the description below, and go ahead, click on the download and install the version that applies to you. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to install this. If you're on Linux, do it through this. If you're a Mac, do it through that. The next step would be to deploy our application. So coming back to your application project directory, this is mine. Go to the Heroku directory, open it up, and then you'll see a whole bunch of files. The scripts that you're interested in is going to be only one, which is setenv.cmd. That's on Windows. If you're on Linux or if you're on Mac, be interested in the shell script. Okay? So I'm on Windows. I'm going to go ahead and edit this. I need to change certain information on this script. All right. So this is, as you could say, it says set env, and some of the things I pretty much mentioned by comment. So it basically sets the environment. Here you have to make sure that all of these informations are correct. Well, on Windows, my home drive is C. My temporary path kind of is temp, so that's what that is. This is where you install Java. If you recall, I installed Java on C:/JDK-17, and this is where I installed my Heroku CLI, and that is very important because it's going to run some Heroku command in order to be able to deploy the application to the Heroku cloud. And then after the deployment, I want to check my application if it's working, so I just kind of put my browser I'm going to use. So this is where you put the exact path of the browser. I'm going to use Chrome, so that's where I put my Chrome browser's path. I commented this out. If something goes wrong in running the script, you can turn this back on by removing this rem. That will just set the Heroku debug flag to on. That will give you more information on the console, and that will show you exactly what is going on. And the new application, don't change that, and the rest of the stuff, you want to make sure those are correct. Like the project path is where unpacked your project, right? In my case, I unpacked my project in two projects, and I haven't changed the application name, which is the exact same as this. So I would say that whatever you unpacked your project, so you could change this if you have to. If you follow the exact same path as I did, you don't need to do anything in here. And again, this basically don't need to change anything, because if you fix your project path, it will automatically point to where the scripts are. The other thing that we have to do right now, that step that we're going to do right now, is Heroku. Of course, once you register to Heroku, it is something that you have to authenticate in. It's a extranet type application, right? So you have to log in through the portal. Now, when you run it through the command line, you also have to authenticate. So it can get annoying if you have to log in every time when you run the script. That's why there's a way you can actually authorize, get the key, and set the key, and forget it. Every time you run it, it just knows this is you're authenticated, and just run. So that's what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna try to get that key. Okay. So what you want to do is copy this piece of code right here, open a shell, and run this command. So that's what I'm going to do. Go ahead and run this. After you run it, you should get something like this: creating OAuth authentication done, and you get an ID, and then you get a token. What you want to do is copy this token exactly how it is, no space before or after, exactly how the token is. Go back to your setenv.cmd file, make sure paste it in here exactly, and then go ahead and remove this rem space. Once you do all that, go ahead, exit out of the notepad, which will prompt you to save it. Go ahead, save it, and you should come back to this. So now you have completely set the environment, okay? And you should be good to go. There's one more step to do. So far, we have created the database in our freesqldatabase cloud. We have set up our Heroku CLI. We have also set up our local environment to basically specify where all of our local commands are: Java, Heroku, and then what kind of authentication we're going to use with the API key. Now, the last thing that we have to do before running the script is basically tell the Heroku where to find the database, where to connect the database to, so that SpringBoot can find the database and connect to the database. So in order to do that, you go to this file right here, .env file, and you can open it up with your favorite text editor, and you just need to set these three pieces: your database password, your database URL, and your database user. Okay, so how do I get there? Well, coming back to our famous email that we got from the freesql database, you get this information from here. So your password is, of course, this password. Your user is going to be the user that you're going to get from the email, and your URL, all you're going to change is this host and the database name. So your host is going to come from this host, and the database name is going to come from this database name right here, as you can see. So go ahead, set that up, all of this thing exactly how it is, and then you can save and close this file. Just to let you know that when you replace the information. Okay, replace this entire thing. Do not leave the less than and greater than sign. All right, replace that, but do leave the double quotes. Same thing here. Replace this entire thing with the correct information. Replace this entire thing with this correct information. Do not remove the double quotes. Same thing here. Replace this information right here. Do not replace the double quotes. Okay, now that we are all set and done, it's time for the actual fun. All we're going to do right now is we set up everything, all the environment. We told Heroku exactly where to find all of my programs. We told Heroku where to find the database. So all we're going to do right now is run this deploy command that should automatically compile our program, create the WAR file, connect to Heroku, deploy the WAR file to the Heroku, and then when the deployment is done, it's going to open a browser and it's going to go to that application so that we can test it. There's one potential issue that can happen, because if multiple people uses the exact same name for the applications called EVMSH, the deployment may fail because it will say that, hey, the application name already exists. So in order to avoid that, you may want to make a couple of more changes, because I don't know how many people are going to watch this video and try to do the exact same thing and try to deploy the EVMSH with the exact same name. So it would be safe for you to change the name based on, maybe with something that will be unique to you, right? So let's go ahead and show you exactly where to change that. One place would be to change it in this file right here. So change the name to, let's say, for you don't like to call the app name EVMSH, then you might want to change that to whatever EVMSH2, 3, 4, or whatever other things. If you're going to do that, there's another place that you also need to change, a couple of the places. So here, then of course you're going to go to one directory back, go to the pom.xml, and change the name in these two places, the artifact ID and this name right here. Because once you change the name, then the WAR file will be named a similar way and the application name would be the similar way as well. And then, last but not the least, go ahead and rename this directory to whatever that app name is. Again, just another quick note, do not use underscores or any other special character, okay? To keep things simple, you can use numbers, but do not use underscores or other special characters. Okay, now you're going to come back to the Heroku directory. So let's go ahead, do it. All you're going to do is now double click on this deploy.cmd. That's what I'm going to do. And as you can see, it's going to run like this. Now it is compiling the program. In your case, depending on, I have already run this several times, so it's not going to download all the Maven repositories, but in your case, maybe it's going to start downloading a whole bunch of repositories initially. But don't worry about that. As long as it's running now, it's actually updating certain Heroku CLI plugins called Heroku config and then Heroku Java, and then it's going to also try to update the plugin for the WAR file. Now the reason you see this the very first time is because one of the things it tries to do is it tries to delete the app if it already exists on Heroku. Okay? In my case, or in your case, first time, this is not going to exist in Heroku Cloud. So this is absolutely fine. If it says could not find the app, you just go and say, go ahead, that's fine. Don't worry about it. I understand you didn't find the app. So hit any key, and it's going to keep going. So it didn't find the app, so you can delete it, though create it, of course. That's the step it's doing right now. Then it's going to set all the environments that we for the database, and it's going to stop the server if it's running already. And here it is. Whatever WAR file that was created before, it's going to try to upload that WAR file right now, as you can see right here. It's packaging and uploading. Give it some time. It's deploying. It figures out, it's going to use JDK 1701, and it's going to install whatever it's needed. And it's done. And now it's going to try to launch this app. This is the URL, by the way. You see right here. It's going to try to launch right now. And there it is. It is trying to launch right now. And this tells me that the app got deployed, and it's trying to launch it using that Heroku provided URL. that comes with the free tier already. Give it some time because it needs to start the SpringBoot and all that in the Heroku. There you go. The application is up and running right now. And again, the user ID and password, you can look it up on the SQL script. It's actually admin for the admin and a password, a small case, P capital. I can log in. Voila, I'm in, and I get go to vaccine types, execute application, and I can add, edit, delete, whatever, right? So as you could see that it was pretty seamless, right? And you can run that script again and again, and it will work automatically. And I can also log in as a user. The password is password, P capital. And you don't have to remember these. If you forget the user ID and password, of course you can come back to the video and look at it. Or you can go back to this project, go to the SQL, you can open the script up. It is mentioned right here. User IDs and passwords, admin this, user. So that's all nice and dandy. So what this thing is doing, okay, let's look at the script. The very first thing it does is it sets the environment, it calls the environment, then it just checks if the Java is running okay or not. Then this is the guy that actually does runs the Maven. Then it updates the Heroku call level interface if it's needed. Then it installs the plugin if needed for Heroku config. This is used to import the environment information like those JDBC database information that we updated in the config file .env file. And then it also tries to install the CLI if it doesn't exist. Then it's going to try to delete the existing app. Okay, that's where we got that prompt saying that, we didn't find the app. Is that okay? And then it's try to create that. And then using this Heroku config, it's going to try to import this configuration information, all that database info. It's going to stop the server if it already exists, install any necessary build pack. Build packs are nothing but if there's JDK needs to be involved, or if it's a Marn stack, if some node or something else needs to be involved. So those are the thing that it's going to try to figure out. This is the actual step that it deploys the WAR file. Okay, that WAR file that was built based on this Maven build. Then it's going to deploy the WAR file. It's going to restart the dyno, the server, and then there is this is going to launch the browser with that actual URL. That's the URL it's going to try to launch. Now I commented this thing out, but feel free to uncomment this. If you are interested to see the log after you go ahead and deploy it, for some reason, if let's say that something is not running or you're giving me error, then turn on the log and you get to see exactly what's going on the Heroku side. So this will actually read the log live. So that's about it. And it's a similar step that you do in the Unix or in the Mac as well. You just run that script, deploy.sh. Now let's talk about some of the questions that may arise, which is, why am I deploying WAR file? Because isn't jar file the easiest way to deploy it in Heroku if it's a Spring Boot application? The answer is yes or no. You can deploy jar files if it's a Spring Boot application, but if you deploy a WAR file, you have more control over it. What do I mean by that? The applications that I build, or the sample application that I used here, actually uses technologies like Thymeleaf and MySQL database with its own custom JDBC driver, and maybe other technologies that you wanted to add. If you have an application that has all those customized libraries, from my humble experience, I have seen that it is better to use a WAR file. Just plain old jar file may work in your local platform, but when you try to deploy it using Heroku, it doesn't work in Heroku. So WAR file gives you more control. That's one of the reasons I just wanted to show you the WAR file instead of just a jar file. And then another question may arise, what is this system properties? This is actually, if you open it up, this is where you can specify a custom JDK that is supported by Heroku. So right now, the latest JDK that Heroku supports is 17.0.1. So I just mentioned it. If you don't mention anything, Heroku automatically will pick the latest and greatest one for you. But anyway, this is just to show you exactly what some of these files mean. Okay, just to summarize the entire process, if you really want to deploy any WAR file, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the one that I just showed you, because I just needed a sample. That's why I used one of the existing one that you can actually not only check out, you can also go back and look at my previous tutorial and understand exactly how that application was built. But this process would work using the script that I showed you for any WAR file that you want to deploy. Okay, so the process basically goes like this. You install your JDK, verify, make sure it's installed correctly, install your Maven, verify that, and of course register for the cloud freesql database. Then make sure you get the registration information correctly, all the database host information, username, password, all that other good business. And then register in Heroku, install the Heroku CLI interface. Then when all of that is done, all of the information, your registration for the clouds and your local software installation, then go ahead. In this case, it was the EVMSH application that I already have on the JIT, which I'll put the link in the description below. Check the application out, or you can have your own WAR file. Okay, all you need to do is just use the script that I have it in this with this application, and then go ahead and update the configuration information, all those batch files that I showed you, and the env files, to tell the system exactly what the Heroku cloud is, what the SQL database is, what the softwares are. Once you're done, then just run the deployment script. Voila, you will have your stuff done and deployed. Well, if this tutorial has added value to your life, your skill set, I would humbly request that you subscribe my channel, and of course leave your comments, leave any questions or any ideas that you have, or stuff that you wanted to see that that I can spend time and bring the content to you. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to make these videos as well. And last but not the least, if you are really interested to see how that application was built, go ahead and look at this playlist, which has actually details, step-by-step instructions of exactly how to build that application. And the last one being the full-fledged application that is using SpringBoot. And there are only some minor differences that I have in this version, which is I had to do it because of the limitations on freesql database. This tutorial uses MySQL version 8, but the freesql database actually has MySQL version 5. So there are some minor changes that I have to do to make that compatible with version 5. And also this tutorial actually has used jar file as the deployment option. So in the Maven configuration file, it actually used the jar driven configuration, where in the new one, which is the one that in the EVMSH, I actually used the WAR file. So there's some minor changes in there. Well, until next time, thanks for watching. Have a good one.